Good evening YouTube, Will again here to talk to you about all things music, specifically album and discography reviews on this channel. Please do remember to subscribe to the channel, please do like the content, and please do remember to comment. Let me know if there's any albums or discographies you want me to review and how I can make these videos better for you. Any feedback is always welcome. Right, and today we are going to be doing another album review, and we are going to go into the mid-1980s as an album that was a bit of a crossroads for this particular artist's career. We will be talking today about the 5150 album by Van Halen. Why is this a crossroads album? Well, this is the first album with their second singer, Sammy Hagar. In the history of Van Halen, did 6 albums with David Lee Roth, with what's considered the classic lineup. They had fantastic success. Eddie Van Halen, of course, on Van Halen 1, redefined guitar technique and guitar sound on that. They managed to marry that kind of big pop accessibility that David Lee Roth was bringing into the fold with that kind of very heavy guitar. And as a result, they are kind of considered the sort of precursor to the LA glam metal movement. After 6 albums and a number 2 record with their predecessor record in 1984, David Lee Roth decides to leave the band to pursue a solo career, thinking he was outgrown the success of Van Halen. Deciding to continue on without him, they recruit Sammy Hagar, a singer who had a pretty extensive career at that point. He was a singer of the band Montrose, which were in the early 70s meant to be America's answer to Led Zeppelin, and then had a pretty successful solo career, including his previous albums coming onto the Van Halen Bandcamp, which was the VOA album, which had a big arena tour, big success on MTV, particularly with the song I Can't Drive 55. He comes into the Van Halen fold, he stays for about 15 years, leaves, comes back to us another tour in the 2000, leaves again. Sadly, no longer on good terms with Eddie and Alex Van Halen, but nevertheless, those 4 albums, particularly this and the third album, For and a Lot for Carnal Knowledge, are classic Van Halen records, and I will fight anyone who said otherwise. So we're going to be doing 5150. This is their first #1 album. It goes, I think, 4 or 5 times platinum in America. It really much launches Van Halen onto a much bigger scale. Kind of immediately following on the coattails of 1984, but still really pushing that momentum. They have massive MTV success with his records, and again prove that Van Halen can continue without David Lee Roth. Right then, you know what I'd like to do on these album reviews. I like to go in track order, give my thoughts and opinion on each individual track, give it a ranking out of 10, and then of course talk about the album overall, give my final thoughts on it. So let's get straight into 5150. So, track 1 is a song called Good Enough. One thing I like about albums, particularly the ones that really shine to me, is having a very strong opener. You know, you gotta have a Welcome to the Jungle, you gotta have a War Page, you gotta have an Enter Sandman to really hammer home what your intentions are for the record. And Good Enough is a great way to start this album. It's much more of a guitar-driven kind of song. Sammy Hagar really showing off what he's going to be bringing to the band, his songwriting craft and also his vocal range, being very different to David Lee Roth, but also much, in my opinion, much greater, much stronger. It's a very fast-paced, big, upbeat kind of track, and it's a great way to kind of bring the kind of movement in for this particular record. Eddie Van Halen's guitar sounds really good on it. The guitar solo, the way it kind of comes in with that soaring note into his typical guitar tappy kind of solo credentials, is absolutely stunning. Overall, I'll give the track a great 7 out of 10. It's a fantastic way to start the record. It's not one of the strongest songs, admittedly, on this album, but it's a very good way to kind of bring out what this whole album is going to be and what this new era of Van Halen is all about. Track 2, we get to one of the main singles from the record, which is Why Can't This Be Love? This song becomes a classic of the Van Hagar era. You know, Van Hagar did the Sammy Hagar years, and it's actually one that was also a song that was performed when Gary Cherone was fronted the band in the late 90s. This is the second song in the Van Halen catalogue that really is a keyboard-heavy track. It is very much dominated by the keyboard sound, and then the bass and the guitar kind of follows on along with it. It's a really nice song to kind of go through. It's definitely a departure from what we are used to with Van Halen being much more of a guitar-driven kind of band. But as a whole song though, as a craftsmanship of a song, it's actually really good. It's got a great kind of chorus, very much in line for radio, but even Sammy in his solo career was very much doing that, having these very big catchy choruses. It's just the American hard rock way from the 1980s. You know, I've always found it a bit strange to kind of bridge that kind of ba 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 going into the keyboard solo. But it's actually pretty decent to be fair, and the guitar solo on there is actually pretty cool. I think it's actually in live situations was done by Sammy Hagar, sitting on the 5150 tour because Eddie was up playing the keys. Overall though, I actually give the song a 7.5 out of 10. It's definitely one of the classics from the Van Hagar years of Van Halen. You know, very much shows actually we are still continuing down the keyboard thing that starts with Jump on 1984, and really demonstrating that, you know, where the two sides of this record, you know, it's not all the big guitar stuff, it is the other side of the keyboard, as it were. But yeah, 7.5 out of 10 for Why Can't This Be Love. Track 3 we get to Get Up, and Get Up is it's a fantastic song, and it's one of the best demonstrations of drummer Alex Van Halen's credentials, and actually Michael Anthony, the bass player's credentials as well, as a rhythm section, because those drums are non-stop, just fill after fill after fill, double bass drum kind of absolutely hitting you like a train. Very not quite as distinctive as Hot for Teacher, not as iconic, but sitting on that level of it, it just absolutely propels the song forward. And it's almost like Sammy and Eddie on this song kind of take a bit of a back seat, letting Michael Anthony, who locks in with his drums absolutely incredibly, it lets them kind of take control where this song's going in terms of tempo, in terms of rhythm. Eddie sounds pretty awesome on the track as well. Sammy, I think, is the weakest of the four in here, but he's Sammy Hagar, you can't really go too wrong with him. My only real critique for this particular track is not as memorable as some of the others, other than for those drums. But for the drums alone, it's a pretty good rank, so I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 as well. You know, I think it was one of the sort of lesser singles from the record as well, so you got to give props for actually being good enough that the record company thought, okay, let's actually release this as an individual track as well. So yeah, 7 out of 10 for Get Up. Track 4, we get to what I would actually consider is probably my favourite song on the record, and dare I say it, perhaps one of my all-time favourite Van Halen songs as well. It was the first one I heard. Thank you, being the 90s kid, I watched the Power Rangers movie, and this is the song at the end of it, and I think that's where my connection with Van Halen began, really. We're talking about the song Dreams. Starts off with a bit of a keyboard kind of song, you know, it has the kind of bass and drum, and then kind of comes on top of it as well. Sammy then comes in with his absolutely tuneful vocals on top of that. And it's just an amazing 80s rock song from this era. It's one of the best. It's definitely one of the best from the mid 80s. I think one of the best from the 80s overall. You know, it's definitely a song that's very thought-provoking about always trying to achieve more and always reaching for your dreams. In this as well, has an amazing bit of guitar work on here as well. I think the guitar at the beginning sounds really cool. You get the guitar solo in the middle, where I think the tempo and the chord progression does change a little bit, kind of comes to a little beast within it. You know, but it does sound really good. It kind of shows off a lot of Eddie's kind of slightly more melodic kind of playing. And then we get the ending guitar solo as well, which I think is one of my favourite Van Halen guitar moments outside of that first couple of albums. Really great track. It's a highly strong song. It's the best one here by a long mile. I'd go as far as to give it 8.5 out of 10. It's absolutely sensational. You know, the only I would love to hear a bit more guitar on the track overall, but it is near perfect. You know, that's my only real critique, is that it could have been a bit more guitar involved in the actual song. But it is really good. I can't go too off topic with it. It's absolutely stunning. Yes, it's definitely the best one here. So Dreams, 8.5 out of 10, killer song, and I think it's definitely one of the classics from the Van Hagar period. Track 5, then we get to Summer Nights. It's actually one of, in my opinion, it's one of the more underrated tracks on here. I like Eddie's kind of guitar riff on here. It's a little bit more kind of choppy, if that makes sense, and then the drums kind of really match along with the rhythm section as a whole, really do match along. I think Sammy Hagar does a great vocal on this particular song. It really does kind of soars. He uses a little bit lower register on the verse, and then has those big harmonies on the chorus as well that kind of propels you. It's a song that I think is definitely a feel-good summer track as well, particularly when the sun begins to set a little bit, the party's beginning to happen. A bit more of a mid-tempo kind of one, you know, compared to the other more guitar-driven songs on this record. You're good enough and getting everything very fast-paced. Bit more mid-tempo, bit more kind of like a summer chill track in that way. But then you've got Eddie Van Halen, one of the greatest guitar players, really just blowing you with a bit of distortion as well. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. It's the second best track on here. It's really great to see you can get to the midway point in an album and it's still really strong craftsmanship in terms of the songwriting and compositions and the overall playing. Summer Nights, 8 out of 10. Great track, really quite underrated in my opinion. Track 6 is Best of Both Worlds. Best of Both Worlds, obviously, I think kind of defined this whole period of Van Halen, really, and then actually became the name of one of the compilations, which features the David Roth era and the Hagar era kind of together, Best of Both Worlds. You know, I think it's actually a pretty cool song. You know, it's definitely well written. I think it's got some great kind of drum beats on here. Again, Sammy sounds actually amazing on it. I think the chorus is actually pretty strong as well. You know, I'd actually give it a good 7.5. No, I should give it an 8 out of 10. It's definitely, again, a really good track on here. Another single for the album. Very, very strong. Very much propelled you again forward without being too in your face like Get Up. Yeah, it is actually a very strong track. I think it's one they did perform quite a fair bit during this period, and actually right through Sammy's time in Van Halen on and off. So yeah, Best of Both Worlds, 8 out of 10. Really cool track, you know, bit of a classic from this period. Track 7, and then we get to the last of the really heavy keyboard dominated songs, which is Love Walks In, which is the main ballad here. I mean, Why Can't We Love can be arguably a ballad. Dreams is a bit of a ballad in some respects, less so than Why Can't We Love. This one is very much this is a guitar ballad. This is like a whole ballad song. Very, very keyboard dominated, very radio poppy pop friendly kind of vocals on this. You know, and Michael Anthony is one of the most underrated members of Van Halen because of his vocal harmonies always shining through. Works very great with the David period, and that was absolutely amazing with Sammy as well. This song I've actually never been too keen on though. I've always found it to be a bit too wishy-washy. I've never been too into the synth keyboard kind of sound too much. I like a little bit of it, but I don't like it to this extent, and I've always found ballads a bit wet. This is a good ballad though, so I give it a 6.75 out of 10 because it isn't a bad song. But I do like, but you know, it's not my favourites from the album overall. It's cool, but it isn't amazing. So, you know, there you go, 6.75 out of 10 for Love Walks In. Track 8, we go back into a bit more guitar world. We get the title track, which is 5150. Again, it might have been a single, or might be a B-side to one of the other major singles for the album. What can I say about this? I mean, you know, it's another mid-tempo one, a little bit more slower than Love Walks In Summer Nights rather, but you know, it has a lot of the great guitar stuff. The riff on the chorus I've always really enjoyed. The guitar solos on the throughout the track are absolutely sensational as always. Michael Anthony actually, his bass, it is a bit kind of lower in the mix. You listen out for it. It's actually really quite intrinsical on the verse. Really kind of moves around really nicely along with what Alex is doing on the drums as well. Even though he's taking a bit more of a reserved kind of feel to it. My only real downside of this particular track is actually one of the more forgettable ones on here. You know, I mean, what every single song on here can be a big single, you know, it still doesn't really stand out when I go back to think about this particular album. The previous tracks all do to a certain extent, to varying extents anyway, but this one is definitely where I kind of switch off from this album. It comes in just under 6 minutes, but I think it could have been done maybe in about 30 seconds, perhaps even a minute shorter, because it does meander then a bit towards the end. So overall, I'll probably give it a 5.5 out of 10. You know, it's definitely worth more than a 5 out of 10, but it's not, you know, kind of, okay, we're getting to actually a particularly good song here. It's an okay song, it doesn't really do it for me. And I can kind of say the same about track 9, which is called Inside. According to some of the music review when I was doing my research on this album to kind of refresh myself, this was Sammy's attempt at doing a bit more of a kind of jokey, David Lee Roth kind of lyrics on it, and it really didn't work. It's actually a song I think it's actually a bit of a shame to kind of end an album with, because I found the vocals on it are all a bit meandering, all a bit kind of hit and miss. Even the harmonies kind of don't really gel that well together. Big chorus, as always, you know, but the verse and the bridge are all kind of a bit off, you know, and again, it's actually the most forgettable one on here. For that reason, I'm probably going to give it a sort of maybe a 4.5 out of 10, you know. It really does drop below compared to the rest of the album. It really does meander, and it's a bit, like I say, it's just a very forgettable track. You know, you can tell at this point during the session, they kind of ran out of steam with this particular one, and I think Sammy trying to maybe do a bit of an impersonation of Dave Lee Roth in the verse, that kind of like offbeat kind of spoken singing didn't really work, because Sammy has an amazing voice and it was just a bit rubbish, quite frankly. It's a shame really, because that ends the album, but nevertheless, you know, tracks 1 through 6, certainly, even arguably Love Walks In, are amazing songs overall. I give this whole album an 8 out of 10. It's definitely one of, if not my favourite Van Halen albums overall, particularly because of Dreams, particularly because of Summer Nights and Best of Both Worlds, and even Good Enough is great. Love, Why Can't This Be Love is pretty cool, of course, like I said. You know, so it is definitely one of the better ones. I think it's a great way to start the Van Hagar period, you know, and like I said, this is a time where they get 4 #1 albums, and they are very much on top of the world in terms of being one of the biggest bands from America at this point. So like I said, I'll give it an 8 out of 10 for 5150. Really, really cool album. Definitely worth checking out if you want to kind of get beyond the David Lee Roth era of Van Halen, because there are some great tracks out there when you get past those first 6 albums. Thank you for watching. Like I said, Van Halen's a pretty cool one to do. I don't know what I'm going to do next time. I have no idea. I'm going to go back to doing a discography. We're going to keep going down the album route, but I've actually quite enjoyed going through individual albums to kind of give my thoughts now. Please do remember to subscribe to the channel and like and comment. Let me know what I can do. Anything, maybe, please do help me kind of get this out there a bit more now. Please definitely do remember to subscribe if you have got a YouTube channel. Even create one to subscribe. Let's help me out here at this point. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great evening.